Okay, we are going to get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone that has joined. Thank you again for joining Office Hours. Today, we got a really great topic with Adam. Adam is going to present some great stuff. So with that, I am your host, Thomas Davis. I'm an outbound product manager, and Adam Stout is the speaker. Funny thing about this slide, he and I almost don't even have that beard anymore. I just got to get a recent picture that I can show. So, and Adam's is a little bit different, but I thought that was kind of funny. Performance analytics office hours are for you. This meeting is to show you new things or existing things that are out there, give you ideas. We base this a lot off of the questions that come in from the community and any use cases that we hear of. So we try to gear our office hours around that. So, take the time to really, digest yourself into this and really pick up on some great tips and tricks and some features of the platform and PA and reporting that you can get. This session is recording, so you will be able to have access to it after we're done here. Like with every other office hours, we will put this into a blog with the recording, and you'll be able to access it there for later as a reference, or if you just want to go through it again for whatever reason. So Q&A, we definitely want to hear from you during this. So please ask your questions in the Q&A section, and we will answer those as best we can. If it's something that should be answered by Adam after he is done, then we will definitely direct that to him once we are done. If it's something that myself and also another teammate, David, who is on as well, can answer it, we will answer that while the presentation is actually going. So feel free to listen in. You are muted, but once we get to the Q&A, if we need for you to clarify more with your question, we may unmute you. So again, this is for you, so please get everything out of it that you possibly can. There we go. So upcoming sessions. So in our community, there is an office hours button on the main page of the Performance Analytics and Reporting community page. So you can actually go there and you can see anything that's upcoming, and then you can also see anything that we have already done. And this link, again, this slide will actually be downloaded to PDF, and it'll be attached to the blog as well. So you'll be able to access that and get those things. But again, hopefully all of you are familiar with our community, but make sure that you go to our community and click on the Office Hours button, and you can see any existing or any new ones for the future. So as we keep saying during every office hours, and we will keep reiterating this, K20 was free this year. So all of the labs that were there for PA and reporting are out there. So please take advantage of that and learn as much as you possibly can. And, those will be out there, I think, for the distant future. So I wouldn't wait too long, but you never know. So definitely get out there and get as much of that training as you possibly can. So here's something new that we added, and it is really about making sure that you understand the best way to ask questions inside of the community. So here's some tips that we came up with, and if you could kind of follow these, the more information that you can give, if you can give screenshots, we understand that some information is private, so if you can blur that out or block that out, that's fine, but a lot of times screenshots really help with the questions that are being asked. So pay attention to this, and this is out in the community as well. And if you can try to adhere to this as much as possible, I think it will help get your question answered probably faster and in more detail for you. So it'll help you out quite a bit. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Adam so he can give us an incredible office hours about strategies to remove performance analytics scripts. So with that, Adam, I'm going to unshare and give it to you.
Thanks, Thomas. So I should have taken over now. So today we're going to talk about performance analytics scripts. So a lot of us use them, a lot of us overuse them. And when we wanted to talk about when you should use them and when you shouldn't use them. So let's get started. We'll dig right into it. Scripts are bad. All right, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and post those in the Q&A, and we'll answer those. Okay, well, we'll go through a little bit more detail in there, but why are they bad? And they certainly have their use, but we overuse them. When I talk to customers, they I see overuse of scripts, over reliance on scripts. And the reasons why I don't like using scripts, one, there's a performance cost. So PA scripts run for every row in your indicator source. So if you have 10,000 incidents you're looking at, the script has to run 10,000 times one row at a time. That's not free, right? There is a calculation that goes in there. And that's absolutely needed in some cases, because when I run, it matters. But there's a lot of other cases where that data doesn't change, and I end up calculating the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just not helpful for us. The second reason, and I think this is really the one that gets me the most, is that it's only available in performance analytics. When I use a performance analytics script, I'm only getting access to that calculation in performance analytics during that run. It means it's not available in reporting. It's not available in predictive intelligence. I cannot use it for interactive filters. There's a lot more on this. There's a post I wrote that goes into a little bit more depth about this, but we're trying to drive behaviors in the process, not just report on them. So rather than just looking at, where are we at, I want to make sure that I have that calculation, if it's possible and it's not time-based, that I have this calculation available for reporting, for predictive intelligence, everywhere else in the platform, not just in performance analytics. And then the last reason that I don't like them is maintenance. So a lot of times we end up putting business logic in those scripts, and now that business logic is often replicated in the application somewhere. And if it's in a manual breakdown and there's new choices, I have to maintain that manual breakdown. If I have a bucket group, I need to maintain that group. I just have more logic to put out. And particularly in some of these use cases, that it's worse than others. If I'm calculating the number of days that an incident's been open, well, there is no maintenance there, right? It's a calculation. I need to run it every time, and it's fast. So in that case, these things don't matter. But we're going to go through a bunch of cases where we have a performance hit. I'm blocking myself from using it elsewhere in the platform, and I have to maintain it. So I'm really getting the worst of all worlds. Let's go to a little bit more detailed examples. So scripts can be very expensive performance-wise, and they just don't need to be. So I was working with a customer, and they had a script that took 6 choices. They had a choice field with six choices in it. And the way they wanted to report on it was that they had 3 groups. So those 6 mapped into 3 solid groups. It was, one was 1-to-1, one was 2-to-1, one was 3-to-1, something to that effect. And they used a manual breakdown to do it. Manual breakdowns are in the platform. You configure it, and then you run a script to look up the manual breakdown. But they were running it on hundreds of thousands of records, hundreds of thousands of rows, which meant hundreds of thousands of round trips to the database during every job run. So I ran my performance analytics by job. It had to get the data, get all the rows, get the, say, 200,000 rows, and then it had to go back and forth to the database to look up that manual breakdown. The job was taking about 8 hours to run. I personally, I get a little cringy on a daily job that takes more than maybe half an hour, and I like it in single-digit minutes. This job was running for 8 hours. We took the job, and we used one of these techniques, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we went from 8 hours to 20 minutes. And I believe that they did a little bit more tweaking and got it down into single-digit minutes. But 8 hours down to 20 minutes by applying one of these strategies. So we'll talk about it in a lot more detail, but it can be very expensive. And if you see jobs in the hours, it's because you're running a script. That is my go-to. Any job that's taking more than maybe half an hour, unless you're running a historical job. And if I'm looking at a single day's worth of data and you're running more in the double digits of data, it's a job, or it's a script in your job. And especially multiple scripts can be problematic. So this is a lot of the why. So we'll talk about that one more specific. Now, scripts are there. They're there for a reason, right? So let's talk about why I should be using a script and why I use a script, period. So scripts are absolutely required for date calculations. I only want to see scripts that have score start or score end on them. Those are special variables that come into play in performance analytics. Hopefully you're familiar with them, but they are the start of the period and the end of the period. On a daily indicator, it's midnight in the morning down to 11:59 in the evening, right? The whole day. When did the score start and end? On a monthly, it's from midnight on the first to midnight on the last day. And when I'm calculating how long has something been open to date, I need to use the score ends, and score starts acceptable too. Because that changes every collection period, the only way you can do it is calculating it when you're collecting, right? And again, it is special. It's not now, but it is when the period collected. So if I have my job running for yesterday, then it's going to be up through midnight this morning, up through 11:59:59 last night. So those are fine. Leave them. They're also very fast. I don't have any major logic in here. We're just doing a date calculation. It's something in milliseconds. Even if I have to run this 100,000 times, it's very fast. And it is different for every record, effectively, right? The sys updated on is different for every record. It's different for every run. This is how I have to run it. This is why scripts exist. But let's talk about a bunch of other use cases that we see. So, and this is the breakdown. We're going to go through each and every one of these. And again, you'll have this deck accessible to you to go back and forth through it. So manual breakdowns, this was the 8 hours to 20 minutes. The performance of a manual breakdown is poor because we are going to doing so many back and forth to the database. There are alternatives to this. General recommendation is don't use a manual lookup. We're going to talk about how to solve it. All of these are there for, we see them there for a reason. We did them. And if you have to do it, you have to do it, particularly in a proof of concept phase. I need to get something out, but we're going to talk about what's a better way to approach the problem. Grouping buckets, they perform fine. There are alternatives. I wouldn't use them because there are alternatives and it has to do with maintenance, but they're okay. Anything that goes through that's performance is good, I'm going to have a hard time telling you not to use it. Other than I think there's generally a better way. Hierarchies is a really special one. The performance can be poor because we are doing lots of back and forths with the database. In some cases, there are alternatives. In some cases, there are not. And so if you need it, you need it. Then we're going to go through simple transformations, date calculations. That date calculations are why we have scripts. So certainly there's no alternatives for it and you're going to use them. And then a couple of the other big ones we see are non-reference joins, aggregates. Those are both poor performance because they use queries. The general performance issue is if you have a glide record or a glide aggregate in your script itself, it's bad. Coalescing and then dot walking aggregates. Performance is good. There are some alternatives, but if you need to use them, you need to use them. So let's get into these. Let's walk through what these look like. And you might have a script and might not understand which ones of these are. So we're going to go through an example and how you work around each one of these. Key thing to remember as we go through this, that you can write PA scripts. So you do write PA scripts. That's what we all do. I love scripts. I love them and hate them. It's a very complicated relationship. But we got to remember analytics is a team sport. We need to work together. So if I'm working as an analytics developer, I'm used to whether it's creating BI reports somewhere or I'm in charge of PA and I create the indicators and I do the scripts and I do everything. We cannot solve all the problems ourselves, right? We can do a PA script and solve the problem right now, but I'm not solving the problem for my organization. So we need to make sure we're working with our admins, our app developers, the process owners to apply these solutions. As we go through them, there's a challenge here in that I'm going to take something that you can do by yourself right now, and I'm going to ask you to work with other people to make sure we solve it better for our organization. Okay, I understand that challenge, but that is the challenge I'm putting in front of you. All right, let's go through some detail about what we're going to see. So this is in the same order we had before, manual breakdowns. I have a couple examples here that we see with manual breakdowns, and we'll go through what it looks like. So hopefully you can kind of go, oh yeah, that's my script. And we'll talk about how do you resolve it. So sys class, doing a manual breakdown on that. What we see is this is the script, and we'll see the examples of the scripts that I have a breakdown. This is my breakdown. I have a hard-coded sys ID. I am getting the value of sys class name from my record from task from CMDB. And then I have to query manual breakdowns table for that breakdown, for that value. What do I get? What's the sys ID I get? It's a pretty simple standard script. I'm sure we all see it somewhere in our instances. The way I want to approach this though, is instead of doing that query one at a time, we're going to create a database view. And we'll see that with CMDB class. I think this is out of the box now. And what you get is CMDB joined to sysdb object. Sysdb object, while in the sys class name is a string, which we can't break down by. We need a sys-ID. There is a sys-ID in every instance that gives me one sys-ID for every sys class name. And so by joining in the database the CI sys class name to database object name, I now can get a one-to-one sys-ID for every record I want. Doing this, on the performance side, what's happening is we're doing this all in one query that takes slightly longer. You know, instead of being 5 seconds, it's now, let's say it's 6 seconds. But what I'm cutting out is every query now doing one at a time, right? We're able to do one query instead of potentially hundreds of thousands of queries. This is the use case that we took a job from 8 hours to 20 minutes. 8 hours to 20 minutes. It can be massive. As we go through this, just to walk through, this one is really the most complicated one to implement after the fact. But we need to go through, there's, again, a few steps in here, but it's in a sub-prod environment, delete all your scores. You can't, in this case, we're going to change the indicator source from, example, would be from CMDB CI to a view. And you can't change a table if there's scores there. There's a UI blocker that's doing it. But in a sub-prod, we can go in, delete all the scores. I'm in a sub-prod, so that's okay. You know, make sure you're in a sub-prod. Then we're going to open an update set. We're going to go in and go through the steps of create the new view, because I want that in the update set. We're going to add the new breakdown source to sysdb object. And we're going to switch the breakdown. We're going to switch the indicator source. And then we're going to add the mappings. We're going to add the mappings from the breakdown source to the indicator to that new view. So we have to configure all of that, and then we can close the update set. And then we're going to push that update set to another subprod and validate it works. It should just move over quickly. The UI will not let you change the table or the breakdown source table, but as an update set, it'll apply it. But you want to validate that in a separate subprod that everything looks good, all the data is there, and then you need to run a historical collection. Because we're going to move manual breakdowns have their own sys-ID unique to themselves. And now we're switching to a standard one. We are changing those sys-IDs. The history is lost if we didn't do the historical collection. So it's up to you whether you actually need to do that or not. If you don't, that's fine. And if you do, you'd have to run a historical collection to get the new breakdown sys-IDs. A question came in, which is related about using the database view for interactive filters on the CI class. I believe if your reports are working on there, it should work. If you built the breakdown on that, it should be fine. But that's relying on the report being on the view as well, because the report is where that CI, that database view lives. So there's some things you can do with the interactive filter, some you can't. But in this case, the performance gain is massive. So it's something that we'd certainly want to look at being able to do. And the note again, the historical data in this technique, we are changing the sys-IDs of the breakdowns, so they're lost, and you'd have to do that historical collection. All right, let's talk about a couple more manual breakdown examples that we have. So as we go through alternative groupings, so this is one we talked about where I have a categorization. I have the 6 fields and I want to take it down to 3. It's just a manual grouping. And we're doing it in a script. We're doing it on the fly. That it is one of these 6 choices, but I want to make it one of these 3. The issue I have with this is that I can't use that in interactive filters. I can't use it in reporting because it only exists at collection time in PA. And so we want to look at the same design pattern that we can use with buckets, we can use with grouping. So this one's reusable in different cases, but let's talk about what the script looks like. And in the script today, what I see is very similar to the sys class name that I have to go in and look up what I'm looking for. And then what I'm trying to do is grab the manual value, but based on, in this case, what's my assignment group. My assignment group has either front office network, back office network, front office hardware, back office hardware. I just group them in the front office and back office. And then I get the manual breakdown for that. Instead of doing this, right, and I'm putting this logic in my script that I have to evaluate over and over and over again, even though any given group is either front office or back office or unknown, what I want to do instead is to add a new choice in this case, it would probably be on sys user group. On sys user group, I would just add the choice that I want. I want to consider this group to be front office or back office. I might put a business rule in to say if it has the name front, that I use it, that I put it as front office. If the choice front, if it has the word back, I do that. Or I cannot use a business rule and just manually set it and require it. When you create a new field, when you create a new group, you set where do you want to put this in reporting wise, right? So it doesn't have to have the name front or back. You can have whatever it want. I don't have to worry about typos. And by putting it on sysuser group, I now can use that anywhere. I can report on sysuser group. I can use it in interactive filters. I can use it in predictive intelligence. I can use it in PA, and it's faster. So it's faster. As part of my process, I can make sure all new groups are bucketed into front office or back office, and I can use it elsewhere in the system. This is a complete, easy, no-brainer win. The one caveat is because we're moving from manual breakdowns that have their own unique sys IDs to something else, we have the same historical issues. So the sooner you can do it, the better. But it is something that we'd want to do, right? At the end of the day, I don't want to build any new manual breakdowns like that. I want to solve the problem where it lives, right? This is an issue with how I categorize and how I report on assignment groups in this case. Let's make sure that there is a field in assignment groups that clearly shows me what I'm going to report on, and I will just use that in PA, not try to mask it in PA. Okay, and the last type of manual breakdown we see is a breakdown sandwich. Yeah, it's a breakdown sandwich, and the breakdown sandwich, it's very much the same as everything we had before. So let's take U region. This is really common that I see this in location. We add a region field as a string. We add a field, especially in common location, that's a string, and we can't break down by strings. So the way we solve it is a breakdown sandwich where we create a new manual breakdown, and then we have a job that looks for all the strings and creates entries in manual breakdowns. Why? Right? This is because in terms of PI, I was able to do it. I either maintain that list manually, or I have to write a job that admin has to run to populate it. And the way we're going to solve this is incredibly simple. We're just going to make that region field in the example here, it's U region, the region field on location. We're just going to make it a choice list. When we import the data going through an import set, there's an option that just says, if you see a new choice, create a new value in the choice list. So it's actually a lot less work for everybody involved if we just get the right people involved to say, hey, make this a choice list. And then when you're importing it or creating it, just check the box to automatically create it. Reference might be appropriate too, whether it's a choice or a reference, doesn't matter from the PA perspective. Doesn't matter in most cases. But if there's attributes, then I might create a new table for my regions table. But it's very simple. It is actually a simple exercise than what we did before, using a breakdown sandwich, but you have to leverage the platform to do it. You have to work with your admins, work with your app developers to get it done correctly. For all of these, I don't want to see any more manual breakdowns. It is there. Again, it's really useful for a quick POC, but it's going to hurt you. Manual breakdowns will hurt you because they require scripts to use them, right? And they require the worst kind of script, which has got a glide record in it. Okay, so we talked about manual breakdowns. We're going to go through a few other examples. So hierarchies, if you've taken, I think Dan Kane is on the line. If you've taken the K20 lab on hierarchies, we talk about visualizing data and hierarchies for PA specifically. We use a hierarchy script. And what the hierarchy script does is it says for a current user, so in this case, assignment group manager, I want to get that manager's manager and the manager's manager, and the manager, however many there are. Super useful for reporting, right? We need to have it. This is one where sometimes there are alternatives, sometimes there aren't, but this is the use case we see for it. The script, this is a very simplistic version of the script. There's a little bit more to catch, especially for some data errors, but highly recommend the K20 session on hierarchy. You'll see this example, but what we want to do with this, and we can do it in some cases, and again, maybe not in every, but we can do it here for user. Well, managers don't change all the time. They don't change second to second. So what we want to do is create a field. We want to materialize the hierarchy as a list field, which can handle n levels of values, a list field on the base table. So on the user, every user record actually has a list of sysids of all their managers. For locations, the location, I'm in a city, which is in a province, which is in a region, which is in a country, which is on the earth. All good stuff. But those don't change. Cities do not change states very often. States don't change countries very often. So we can just materialize that list in the location. And now we don't have to have a script and calculate what country is New York in, right? What state is New York in? What country is New York in? We don't have to do that over and over and over again. And if you think about it, again, if I had 100,000 incidents I'm looking at, do you really need to look that up 100,000 times? And worse off is it's not, you're not looking up once, but you have to look up what's the parent, what state am I in? What region am I in? What country I'm in? It's 4 queries. And if I'm doing a manager hierarchy and I have 5 levels of hierarchy, 6 levels of hierarchy for 100,000 incidents, I'm now doing 500,000 or 600,000 queries for that single indicator source every day. It's an amazing amount of work when we can just go, no, we'll just put a business rule in that just says when a manager changes, recalculate the managers. And specifically for user hierarchy, which is very common, most of us have this in here. HR systems generally already have this. So when I'm loading my data in from LDAP, when I'm loading in from Workday, when I'm loading in from wherever, if it's already there, let's just convert it to sysids. Maybe I'll put a little transformation script to make sure it does the lookup on load, but this might come for free for you. So make sure you look and see if you are already doing it. There's a lot of customers I see are already doing this. It may be broken out by like username or some other system ID, but you can convert that to sysid. We do need it to be the ServiceNow sysids for those users, but you can do that on load once, and now I can just use it. And there's no script. I just say breakdown by list. PA natively handles breaking down lists, which are what these things are. You get all the power and just none of the cost. So make sure you look at this if you need hierarchies. If you can materialize it, materialize it. The example where you can't do it would be CMDB. If you have 100,000 records and there's different paths to go up and there's not a defined parent, that this is not a good fit for that. Then we'd want to look at using the query builder that we talked about a couple sessions ago. But again, user, location, group, hierarchies, we want to materialize it. The performance is staggering how much better we get, right? These are one of those ones that goes from multiple hours to single digit minutes. All right. So we'll get into a couple of simpler ones, and the simple transformations, all I want to call it, is something like get format, get hour of day. That's what we're trying to do here. I think this is not a box example. It just says, I want the hour of day that the incidents were broken up by. Again, this is going to be fixed by your time zone. This is going to be, it's derived, right? It doesn't change, but if I'm evaluating my incidents, every time I evaluate it in PA, whether it's for open incidents, SLA breach, close incidents, right? Different sources, I'm calculating the same thing over and over again. This is very fast. The performance is not big, but the way I'd want to look at this, or at least consider it, would be to just add a new field on that table and have a BR that comes in and sets it. So if I want to know the hour of a day that the incident came in on, once the incident is created, that will never change. So why do I want to recalculate it over and over again? There is a balancing point here. We don't want to add 300 fields to incident for every slice of day here in every time zone. So there's some subjectivity in this. And again, the performance is fine. But with the performance, I still can't use it in reporting. I can't use it in a pivot. If hour of day matters to me, by putting that on the field, I now can use it in a pivot chart. I now can use it as an interactive filter. So I get more flexibility from it. There's some subjectivity here. Again, you got to use some reason, but I want to look at, do I want to materialize that instead of just using my PA script? All right, up next is date calculations. Okay, they're fine, right? Date calculations, that's why we have scripts. My note here is that this is a bad one. Why? Why is it bad? Because there's no score start and score end. If this is actually what I'm doing, and this is common, right? How long did it take to resolve? Time to resolve. Well, that can never change without OpenDat or start or resolve.dat changing, right? And OpenDat's not going to change, but resolve.dat can change. If this is really what I'm looking for, then why am I calculating that over and over again? Why not put a resolved time as a resolved duration? And hopefully I'm using SLAs and I already get that, and I get business time and all that fun stuff. But if for some reason I'm not, if this was what I was doing, I would put this on the field and just go, how many hours did it take to resolve this task? But that's not what we're looking for, right? If we're really looking for how long did it take in my current backlog, average age of current backlog, I don't want to have this script. I want to have something that looks more like this, that handles, if the resolve.dat isn't empty, put in the score end. If it was not empty if it was not resolved, it's not resolved now, then we're going to compute it as it not being resolved by midnight last night, when the job ran, right? Or the job ran early this morning for last night. If there is a resolved at, then use the resolved at. But if there's not, we're going to use score end. So this script is perfect the way it is. It's just giving me the number of days it took to resolve this from when it opened at. And if it's not resolved, I'm calculating the age. If you don't use score end here and you just do resolved at, then you won't know how old something is until it's done. And we want to be looking at backlog. So again, score end is here. There's no glide record. This is good. My general rule is if I'm not using score start and score end, I don't want to use that script, right? Score start and score end is what I am looking for. That's why scripts exist. They're fine. Outside of that, I'm really going to scrutinize why we're using this script. Okay, a couple more use cases we have. We're wrapping up pretty soon with this. Non-reference joins. So what I mean by this is I see this most often if I'm looking at sys created by, sys updated by, what users are updating this record. And the way we query was instead of employee, this should be sys user. So in sys user, I'm going to query by the created by. So every record, what's happening if I'm looking through my 100, I'm looking through all my PRBs. I'm looking through 20,000 PRBs. What I'm getting from this is I want to get the department executive that sponsors it, some kind of random thing, but created by is not a join. It's period, not a join, right? It's just a string. I have to query it. But if I'm looking at 10,000 PRBs, I now have to run this query 10,000 times. The way I'm going to solve this, we've seen this approach before, and you'll see that there's reoccurring themes. I have two choices. So one, I'm going to fix the data model to be a reference. If this is user created, then just fix it to be a reference, right? Why have a string and join, right? We see this a lot with applications or tables created by people newer to the ServiceNow ecosystem. They don't really understand references, and they think you can join on anything. It's just a normal database. So the thing I'm going to go for anything custom is I'm going to just, can I fix it so that it is a reference, right? Have this be a table, have it be a reference to the table. In the example we saw, it was sys created by. Well, sys created by is a string for a reason. What I'm going to do is create a view. I'm going to create a view that does the join between my table, whatever table that is sys created by, and sys user, joined on username. And again, instead of doing a query per row, I now do one query that takes marginally longer, very small amount of time longer, and I skip all those steps. I do not want to have glide record or glide aggregate in my scripts. Okay, and now aggregates. So aggregates come in where I want to count the number of tasks that are assigned to me. Or no, I want the number of open change tasks for every change. The example I actually have in here is the total allocation time, the total amount of time you have allocated for every day in my resource plans. And again, what happens is for every row, I need to run a glide aggregate to go get this data. Every one, I have to go get it one at a time. And so if I'm looking at 10,000 users, I have to run this query 10,000 times, a glide aggregate 10,000 times. Now, every one might be a second. Second's not long, right? Until you start multiplying it by 10,000 and what other work is going on. So the way I want to approach this is generally I want to use a job to pre-aggregate it. Instead of doing one query per row, I'm going to run one query with a group by. Take one query with a group by. Anybody with the SQL background knows that's going to be a lot faster. I will write it to a table, and then performance analytics can just use that table. And then I don't need to have a PA indicator. I just have my table that I can query. It's nice because in a lot of cases, I can report on that table as well. I can do pivots on that table if it helps me. And whether I run the job to pre-aggregate or I'm just maintaining that aggregate table via a business rule, that's up to your process. That's up to a lot of other things you want to look at. But ostensibly, I don't want to just do it in the PA indicator to get that data right now, but I want one at a time. But I want to either do it in a batch, which is a lot more efficient, or just keep it up to date and then leverage that for reporting as well. Okay, so I might have said this before. I don't recall, but no glide aggregates and no glide records in your scripts. And coalescing. So I'll use coalescing a lot as well. So my use case here is I want to report on my incident, the breakdown by company, but not every incident has a company. So if it doesn't, then I want to look at the user's company, right? So look here, and if this field's empty, then get it from here. And we see this in the real world. I don't have perfect, complete data everywhere I want to go. So I have this little JavaScript function. It's really simple that just says, get it from here or get it from there. The performance of this, there's no glide aggregate. There's no glide aggregate. There's no glide record. Performance is okay. If you want to use this, I'm not going to yell and scream at you, but I am going to tell you don't do it, because what I want to do instead, because I want to be able to report on it as well, is I'm going to create a field, a third field or another field. If we were using incident company, I would do incident company resolved. And what that's going to be is a business rule that when the user changes or when the company changes on the incident, it'll do that coalesce for me and put that in a field so I can just report on reporting company, right? Or effective company or something to that effect. There's some holes with this in that if users change companies a lot, I may not update it. With some function fields, you might be able to do it. But it is something that you want to look at being able to do this. Not every case will do it. So you may end up with your coalescing script. And again, performance is okay, but look and see if you can do that, because now I can do my interactive filter on the effective company. I can create a pivot by effective company. There's so much that you can get from this. It's so much more usage in the platform that we want to take a look at it. Okay. And I think we're coming up to the last one here. Walked aggregates. So this one, the script, super simple, just assign to .manager. If I have a script, if I'm trying to count distinct managers from the assigned to managers, the UI won't let you pick that right now. So I create a script that's assigned to that manager. If you do this one, I am not going to kick and screen, because you can use this in reporting. That's fine, right? Because you can walk in other places. We just can't do it right here. It's very efficient. So it's okay if you want to do this, but just in the land of, I don't like using scripts that don't have score start and score end. What I might do is just create a database view that joins this in for me. And then I can report on that. This one for me specifically, it's kind of hit and miss whether I do it. I believe it is in the idea portal. It's something we're working on to allow you to not have to use a script or create a database view. But if I'm doing it today and I'm going to be pure about it, I probably would use a database view so I don't have any scripts, right? Every script I have, if I don't have score start and score end, I don't actually need that script. Again, this one is, you got a little bit of leeway in here because it performs fine. You can use it everywhere else in the system and there's no maintenance. It's just that I don't like it. Okay, so let's wrap up with a couple questions we will answer, but a couple key things in here. We went through a lot of use cases, and again, you'll have the deck as an example to walk through. So not all scripts are the same, absolutely, right? They all do kind of unique things. Every one of us is unique, just like everybody else. But there's really similar ones. So as you saw, as we went through it, we used views to do a lot of things, right? We made that heavy lift into the single view rather than into the query, into the one at a time. We want to stay away from one at a time. Take a look at what you're trying to do and go, what's the best strategy to remove it, right? This is a big list of strategies. This is not every script. Hopefully it covers most of them. But the more complex it gets to be in your PA script, the more of a use case you have, the more of a reason you have to put that into your process. The second part is make sure you're leveraging the Now platform, right? PA is not a standalone application. It is part of ServiceNow, part of the Now platform. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I always want to look at where else can I leverage this data? If it's important enough to report on, why am I not? If it's important enough to trend it, to put in performance analytics, why am I not being able to put that in a report and pivot by it and use an interactive filter by it and have routing rules based off of it and use it for predictive intelligence, right? Don't steal the data from the rest of the platform, put it in the process, let people see it, make sure that it's right, expose it, right? Transparency is key for us. And the reason for all of this is we're focusing on improving the process. I do not care if we are, what we're reporting on. My goal is not to report better. It's to have a better process. We're using PA to help us improve that process. So don't mask the issue. And I know this is hard, but when you do it in a PA script, you're masking it, right? You're showing it one little crack of it. You're showing just a little bit of the glimmer of light, but there's so much more we can do with the Now platform. We are trying to drive behaviors, not just report on them, right? That's performance analytics. That is ServiceNow. That's what we're trying to do here. Okay, we're going to answer your questions, so let's go through it. If we don't get to them, and we have some good time here to talk about these or talk about other questions that come up, go ahead and submit those in the Q&A. But if we don't get to it, then just post it in the Analytics, Intelligence, and Reporting forum in the community. Feel free to tag me and Thomas and David that are on the line. We do all look at these, but man, there's just some great great contributors out there. I love it because I'm not answering everything anymore. I appreciate a lot of you on the phone answer a lot of things. So if you have a question, you know, post it there, ask questions. And let's get to a couple of the questions that we have today.
So Adam, before you get to that one, there was a question from Greg prior to this one where he was basically asking if someone did not have, you know, experience in JavaScript, what would be a good place to recommend start learning? So I'd actually sent him the links to a couple of the Now Learning courses for, you know, scripting inside of ServiceNow. And then he had a follow-up question that maybe you can answer that will go a little bit further with that.
Sure. So with ServiceNow, it is just JavaScript. So there's plenty of sites out there to go through and basic syntax of what goes on. The classes in Now Learning are awesome. I try to get through one of the short ones every week or two because there's just so much out there and such great examples. I've never actually worked for a company that had such great training, and a lot of it, most of that stuff's free now. You go through that, you go through the coding. One of the biggest things I would say with the scripting is, while JavaScript syntax is fine, ServiceNow has a lot of powerful APIs that do what you're trying to do. We have a huge user community, and we're all trying to do things. So if something seems complicated, one, you search Google for, you know, ServiceNow example of what you're looking for, and you'll see lots of stuff out there. But use the developer side as well, particularly when you're writing some code, you're looking for APIs. Examples. So things like, what do I do with glide record or glide query? A for loop is standard JavaScript, but all the glide APIs, you're going to want to look at developer, search the community, because the developer community has got probably 10 times, the platform community has probably 10 times the volume that our analytics community has. But just ask questions. Take some of the Now Learning classes, look on the internet to get familiar with JavaScript in general, and then ask questions. What's the best way to do this? And you will be amazed at how helpful the community is. And the scripting with PA.
Adam, you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Did I drop out?
It was kind of all of a sudden, so maybe you did.
Oh.
But you're back now, so we're good.
Good. And then a question is scripting within PA the same as ServiceNow? Yes. Whether there's a couple of variables like score start and score end that are only available in scripts. And that happens in other places, like does current exist or not? In a business rule, it does. In PA, it does. In a job, it doesn't. A couple minor things like that. But JavaScript is what we use in PA scripts. It's what we use in business rules. It's what we use in jobs. It's what we use on the client side. So there's minor differences between client side and server side, but the scripting is essentially the same. So find an example that does something close and go after it. So there's just an amazing amount of resources for what you want to do for learning ServiceNow. Okay. I think we have a follow-up in here. The follow-up in here about I think this is about using the sys class name as an interactive filter. That gets to be a little tricky as we go through. So when you are using get CMDB tables actually is probably a pretty good example of it. If you have a question about if you have a question about specifically implementing one of these, I'd post it in the community to get some feedback. These were pretty generic examples that come through, but they were all real at some point. So if you have a question about how do I get this to work, post in the community and we get some more details on it. It'd be hard to explain or talk about some of the coding here. So go on from there. So somebody had a question about clarifying that I talked about creating views for data. And I am specifically talking about creating database views in the platform. So the views are something slightly different. And data sources are something slightly different, but we're going to create database views, which we then will use as a report source or a database source. then I clarify. When I'm talking about it here, I'm specifically talking about a database view, and the database view. We talked about that a couple sessions ago too. If you missed that one, we did an office hours specifically on when to use database views, and that allows us to join data, and join data about as effectively as we can do it for not having a dot walk. All right, I think I've gotten through all the questions that have been submitted. We're getting closer to the end of time. But you can feel free to submit any more questions about this or anything else.
Yeah, we just had one more come in there, Adam.
David, are you on the line?
I am.
Yeah. So a question came in. You're a metrics expert. A question came in, and I'm curious your opinion on this. So for reporting on metrics and metric instance, it's secured, right? It's blocked. It's blocked from general users, I guess. Do you have any concerns about granting ITIL users read access to metric instance?
No, but I would say what's the reason is more important, right? So I would mine. It's like a raw data capturing mechanism, right? The metrics. And on top of that, you either build your reports, and those you make visible to the various groups without having, even that can be done even without having access to the underlying records. Or you do it even better through performance analytics. So unless you want to basically expose the metric instance records themselves, for example, in the forms through a related list, because they then show the data there. Yeah, I see no reason why you would want to do it. So if you could basically add to the question, maybe a follow-up with extra reasoning, then that would be interesting to basically have the discussion.
And I think with that, I think not all the metric instance, it's an option, but I think everybody can see them in the metric timeline if you just wanted to view them, but it really does matter. What are you trying to show? There would be a minor security concern, specifically because you're capturing data in there. I would generally restrict the metric instance data to only if you can see the incident, can you see the metrics for it from all my ITIL users. I'm not super concerned about this in most things when I'm talking about state and priority and assignment group. But particularly if I were getting into the world of HR, there may be cases where I do not want to expose that data, right? Just even the aggregates are sensitive.
Yeah, obviously you could just add additional ACL rules to prevent that from happening. But yeah, read-only rules, it's fine, right? It is just a table, and even though it's a system table, sort of, there is no reason why you would not do it. It's not like you're going to run into upgrade issues.
Right. It's fine. I let lots of people see it, and it is great data, right? I think the big thing is don't hide it, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure you're telling the story, you're explaining it, but we don't want to.
If you're capturing the data, it would be an even bigger problem to not expose the data simply because there's no out-of-the-box default view rule on it. That would be like detrimental to the goal that you're trying to achieve with the metrics.
And to add what you just said about the view rule, that I generally don't expose metric instance, but I'm going to expose a view for it. So incident metric, I think is what it is. If I needed it on something that didn't have it already, I'd create defect metric, create a view that joins the table, the base table to that metric, to metric instance with metric. You'll see the examples. Incident metric is out of the box as a view. But if you use that view, then they're able to dot walk, like show me my incidents. They're not just querying everything raw, but they're able to see, just the metrics for theirs or their group or however they want to report on it. It's a lot easier to report on if you leverage it with a view.
That's even the better practice, Adam, because then you only also don't have to worry for example, the HR records that you just mentioned, because basically the contains it all table will still not be that visible to your end users unless they really know where to go.
Yeah. So make sure you're telling the right story. But it's fine generally. And then be sure, a question about creating new metric definitions. That's the metric admin role, I believe you need for that. And I wouldn't let my users go crazy, but if it makes sense to do, then to do. And be careful when you're creating new metrics. Make sure you're looking at, does it make more sense to have is this something that actually should be SLA based that you want to report on? But it gets a little iffy where I have SLA, and we talked about this in a couple sessions ago, where I have metric SLA breakdowns and SLA reporting. In some cases is better if it's available compared to just metric definitions, but metric definitions are fine if you don't have SLAs on them. Okay, well, I think we got through the questions. Thomas, you want to wrap it up for us?
Sure. I did see that, and I do not want to pronounce the name wrong, but Baharia had their hand up, so I don't know if they have a question to ask. If they want to type it in the Q&A. Maybe give them a few seconds if they are. Let me go back and share again. Are you seeing my desktop?
Yep. See PowerPoint.
You see PowerPoint? Okay, good. All right. Okay, no question. All right. So again, thank you, Adam. I know just from looking at the community daily that there are always a lot of questions about scripting, when not, where not, things like that. So I think that this is going to be really powerful for a lot of people out there and a great reference tool going forward. So great job, Adam. So again, I'll reiterate some of the things that I said earlier. Make sure that you go to our community page and go to the Office Hours tab or button, and you'll actually be able to see the existing ones and anything that's coming in the future, and it gives you the ability to go ahead and register for those. So make sure that you do that so you don't miss out. What's next? So at our next Office Hours in 2 weeks, we're actually going to have an Office Hours is going to talk about and give an overview of the new out of the box content that will be coming with Paris as it relates to performance analytics and reporting. So if you have not seen or heard or read or anything of that nature as it relates to this content, you definitely want to be at this so you can see the new things that are coming in Paris. So again, we need your help. So there is an article that also is out in the community that is asking, what do you all want the Office Hours to cover? These are for you. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're giving you content that is giving you direction and the ability to do more things inside of your instance for your organization. So if there's something that you need and something that you'd like to see us to go over within Office Hours, please go out there and let us know. If you can't find that, then you can definitely just ask a question or anything inside of the community, and you can definitely let us know that way. So again, to reiterate, until next time, make sure that you use the community for the questions, and make sure that you're asking those questions based on the previous slide that I showed you. So we're making sure we're getting all the information that we can from you to answer the question as thoroughly as possible. Again, you can catch up on previous topics of Office Hours by going to that tab. They're actually listed in a few places. So there's quite a few places that you can actually find the existing ones. If there's an idea, if there's something that you would like to see in future releases, if it's something that is not out there, and you can confirm that it's not out there, then put an idea in the idea portal, and hopefully the developers can get on that and have that hopefully in a future release. We don't necessarily know what you need until you ask. So please, put as many ideas as you can out there. training. So like Adam was saying before, there's so much training, and there's really great content as it relates to training. Not only what's in Now Learning, but also the K-20 labs that I talked about earlier. So, you know, you really are in a position to get very familiar with performance analytics and reporting, and even other things, obviously, within the platform as well, by utilizing the training that is out there. So, you know, with the fact that K-20 was free, take advantage of that. If you've already been doing that, then kudos to you. If you've not done that yet, you really are doing yourself a disservice by not going out there and actually looking at those K-20 labs, or some of them, the ones that really pique your interest, and then maybe some of the ones that don't. So definitely go out there and take advantage of that as well. So with that, that is all we have. Questions going once, twice. Looks like that's it. So thank you again for joining us this week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.